Hey guys, this is Ryan Boundless. I'm back here with another podcast on today's topic is going to be about, I guess, life in Japan, and we're going to talk a little bit about Japanese people and Japanese women, but we're going to get a different perspective than mine. I have a guest here today. His name is Ben. He's lived in Japan for 4 years, and I've been in touch with him for a couple of years. And I have a large network of veteran foreigners who live here in Japan. I've met up with some of them. Some of them I have not actually met in person yet, but have been talking to for a couple of years on our private social media accounts. And what might surprise you guys is that when Western veteran foreigners who live here in Japan talk to me in private, our negative ideas and our negative feelings about Japan are quite aligned with each other. I mean, it's just that, a lot of these people have professional jobs in Japan, and unlike me, they are not in a position to really speak up about how they really feel about living in Japan, and that's fine. I completely respect their anonymity and their, the position they're in. Your job is your livelihood. But the fact is that there are a lot of negative aspects in terms of living as a foreigner in Japan. Unlike a lot of other channels you might watch on YouTube or a lot of other podcasts you might hear where everything you hear about Japan is great, I want to present the other side to you. There are a lot of great things about living in Japan, no doubt about that. But I'm sick of these channels and these J-vloggers just to get views, just to let you hear what you want to hear. I'm tired of them not telling the 100% truth, the whole story. So anyways, today I'm going to talk to Ben. I'm going to ask him some questions, get his perspective, and react to some of the things he says. All right, Ben, so first what I want to ask you is, what is your general impression of Japanese people?
Well, Japanese people hide themselves from what's real. And what I mean by that is that they're fake people. You'll never get a true response from them. They portray themselves as being super polite. However, they're incredibly fake. For example, you could ask them something as simple as if they're enjoying the food at the izakaya outing with your coworkers, and every last one of them will say that everything's perfect and they like everything. But in reality, they're being fake and lying to you so as to themselves and everyone else. Now try and imagine the same situation but in a different scenario, like out on a date. So you're desperately trying to learn about this Japanese girl and asking her all the questions imaginable. Now, if you didn't know any better, you'd think she was being honest, polite, and sincere. However, newsflash, she's not being real with you, nor will she ever. So she's simply following the steps as outlined in her black Japanese book of deceit to fool you into thinking that you're actually achieving something positive, like getting to know her. Japanese people don't want to open themselves, especially if your facial features don't match that of a Japanese person. You can fucking forget it. Bottom line, making friends with the Japanese is one thing. You can feel like you're best friends, but they will drop you out of their life faster than you can say weeaboo. I swear to fucking God, how much each of you cherish each other's friendship is totally fucking different. Now imagine trying to meet a Japanese and creating a relationship with them into something stronger, meaningful, and lifelong lasting. Good fucking luck with that.
Wow, Ben, thank you. Thank you for that very clarifying moment. You obviously feel very passionate about the level of deceit and fakeness among Japanese people. And I don't disagree with you. I see it every day. I experience it every day, all the time. To me, it kind of seems like it serves as a social buffer. I think that the concept behind it is, first of all, we want to preserve social harmony, and in order to do that, we have to appear that we're always happy, always satisfied in a group situation. So yeah, there definitely is a huge barrier between, outside what you see, how you see them acting, and then inside how they really feel. And that was one thing that was really tough for me when I first came to Japan, because I wasn't used to that. I didn't know what that was all about. Now, it's not just Japanese people that are fake, right? I mean, Americans can be really fake as well. But the thing is, we know when they're being fake, us Westerners, right? But it is, I would agree, it's much more deceitful the way that the Japanese people do it, because you really believe when you're interacting with them that you're hearing something sincere, that you're hearing their genuine feelings. I've had students before say, "Oh, you're such a good teacher. I really enjoyed your lesson." But then later they'll make a complaint against me to my manager. I've experienced that before. So, I mean, it took a long time to slowly understand and be able to recognize that very subtle kind of fakeness and lying. And it's usually wrapped up in a compliment. So yeah, that is extremely frustrating. I remember one time, this was when I first got to Japan, and I had my first Japanese girlfriend. I wanted to study Japanese at a Japanese language school, and I had just started working, so I hadn't gotten my first paycheck yet. So anyways, to pay for the first part of the course, I needed about $300. And I asked her if she could lend me $300. And she said, "Oh, what do you need it for?" And I said, "Well, I want to start studying Japanese." And by the way, this is a completely offshoot, which I can talk about in a different podcast, but I think her ulterior motive was for me to not learn Japanese. She did not want me to speak Japanese. She only wanted me speaking English. So anyways, I told her that I wanted to start studying Japanese, and I kind of sensed a resistive attitude. But then she smiled and she said, "Okay, I'll lend you the money. It's okay. I mean, I don't have much money, but yeah, I'll give it to you. I want you to study Japanese." So the day came where I had to actually pay for the course, and I remember we met at a train station. I was getting off one train, so she was on the platform there waiting for me. And since she was lending me the money, I bought her some roses. So the train arrived at the station. I got off at the platform, and there she was waiting for me. And I handed her the roses, and she just had this sullen look on her face. And then she just shoved the money into my hand, and she said, "Here you go." And I was like, what's wrong? And she's like, "Well, I really don't have this money to give to you. I almost have nothing in my bank account." So, I mean, that was really disheartening. I mean, I wish she had just told me that up front instead of smiling and saying everything was okay. But that's kind of the first memory I have of somebody really being fake to me, and that was my own girlfriend. And then you get it a lot just among your acquaintances, your coworkers, the people you deal with on a day-to-day basis, even though you don't even have an intimate relationship. So yeah, it's very difficult when you come here to Japan to be able to understand this kind of complex social maze, and how to navigate it, and really how to understand and perceive when people are being genuine and when they're not being genuine. It takes a long time to learn that. All right, Ben, my next question for you is, do you think it's easy to make friends with Japanese people?
You can probably guess what the answer to this question is after listening to my previous question, which the answer is hell fucking no. At least anything meaningful, which that is what most normal people would want. I've heard and read stories online from other long-term expats in Japan that when you meet a Japanese person, if you want to make plans with them, they'll put you in their calendar, which is usually booked a month out. Don't get me wrong, Japanese people are kind, funny, and friendly, but it's all a front trying to get past their exterior. It's like me trying to get a girlfriend. Ain't gonna fucking happen. There are some foreigners in Japan who have married with Japanese, and if you look at the statistics on divorce in Japan, The divorce involving foreigners is higher than the divorce rate between Japanese. The other foreigners married to Japanese with successful marriages is very few, and if you research, you'll find some interesting facts about their wife, like they've more than likely been exposed to foreign cultures and or lived abroad for a considerable amount of time. Also, foreigners will have a higher success rate with Japanese who've gone abroad for a long time compared to those who have little to no knowledge of outside Japan, which most people in Japan have never left their country, and that's why they stare at us like we're fucking space aliens who just descended the mothership. Alright, so to answer Ryan's question, are Japanese people easy to make friends with? Fuck no, because real friends aren't fake.
Yeah, Ben, I agree with you in the fact that it is difficult. I have found it to be very difficult to make real friends in Japan, like real friends, like somebody you can call up in the middle of the night and talk to about your problems, or not this fake bullshit where it's like, hey bro, can you meet up? Like, hey bro, let's hang out, and they're like, okay, I can meet you 2 weeks from now on a Friday at 10 o'clock from 10 to 11. Like, that's, you get that so much in Japan, right? But that's not what a real friend is. A real friend is somebody you hit up and you're like, hey bro, let's hang out. And they're like, yeah. And you go and you hang out, and it's like they don't schedule you as an appointment. So yeah, finding real friends that I could just hang out with, feel comfortable with, call up anytime. Somebody I've been in contact with for over 5 years, pretty much non-existent. I mean, I think I've had maybe one or two of those kinds of friends. But yeah, it is very difficult to make what I consider a real friend here in Japan. As for women, I've found it actually really easy to have casual girlfriends. Have a fun girl for a night or 2 weeks or whatever. But I do find that it is difficult for it to get more serious. And that's my take on that, is that usually the girls are just kind of immature. And it's hard to get any kind of depth out of them. It varies from person to person, and of course I'm stereotyping. I've been in Japan for 18 years now, and I've only had 2 relationships with Japanese women that were deep on any level. So, now you were mentioning that relationships between foreigners and Japanese don't last as long as relationships between 2 Japanese people. That may be a true statistic. And you said that you implied that the relationship is more likely to be successful if the Japanese woman, has been exposed to Western culture or has lived overseas. But I can say that in my own particular case, first of all, when if I'm looking for a Japanese girlfriend, I prefer a girl who hasn't been exposed to Western culture or the West at all. Preferably she hasn't been to America or overseas, and she cannot speak English. That is the kind of Japanese girl that I prefer. I don't know why. But I just feel more comfortable communicating with Japanese people in Japanese. I get frustrated when I communicate with them in English. And I like the novelty of having a quote-unquote pure Japanese girl. There's a lot to work with and to understand, but you learn so much. You learn so much when you have a relationship with somebody on their terms in their culture. It really helps you grow as a person, and it takes a long time to get there. I mean, Japanese is not an easy language to learn. It takes so long, so many years to get to a level where you can sit down with your partner and talk about your feelings and your history and your needs and your wants and issues and trust. And it takes a long time to learn how to say all those things in Japanese. So that's a really long road. And a lot of guys who are interested in Japanese girls or interested in coming to Japan, they may not have the patience for that. Not a lot of foreigners that come here are going to be here for 18 years, 20 years. But this is just my own particular case. I prefer, in fact, when I meet Japanese women who have lived abroad or who speak somewhat fluent English, it's just something in my mind is like, okay, I'm not interested in that. But there is good news for you guys out there who you don't want to take the time to learn the language and go through all the, cultural bullshit. There are plenty of Japanese girls out there that they want a boyfriend who only speaks English. The way I perceive those relationships, though, is that ultimately she's going to have control over the relationship. And you can find girls like that out there. I've met plenty of couples here in Japan where the girl is Japanese, the guy is a foreigner. He's been in Japan for 10, 15, 20 years, and he can only say basic greetings in Japanese. And he has his wife or his girlfriend do everything for him there in Japan. And the way that I've perceived those relationships is she's kind of like she's kind of the boss, the leader of the relationship. And, I'm not judging. Some guys are perfectly okay with that. And they live in their little bubble where all their friends and, their friends and their wife all speak English to him. And, he's happy and living in his little bubble. And, I'm not judging. He's happy. And honestly, to be an advocate of guys like that, now that I'm in my older age, I don't know that I have it in me to go to another country and go through the years and years and the struggle and the pain that it takes to learn a woman's culture and her language. That is a lot of work. I don't know if I have it in me to do that again. So I may even one day go to another country, somewhere in Latin America, maybe China. I don't know where I would go, but, I might be at a point where I would be okay just, having her communicate with me in English and having the relationship through English that way. So, yeah, I'm not judging those guys at all. But when it comes to Japan, since I did come there when I was young and I did learn the language and I've gone through all the struggles of learning the culture and having a relationship with a Japanese woman the Japanese way, that is the way that I prefer it now in Japan. All right, man. My last question here I think is going to be super interesting and people are going to want to hear this. I'm also going to answer the question myself after you talk about your experiences, but here it goes, man. What is the best experience you've had trying to get to know a Japanese girl? Now that could be you picking up a girl at the mall. It could be you meeting a girl for the first time on a potential date. It's an open-ended question. And what was your best experience and what was your worst experience? All right, man, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about that.
No, there was a time when we never let go.